Hello and welcome to the cosmic Earth. Tonight, we begin a journey not upward, toward the stars, but downward into the silent depths below our feet. It is a path few imagine when they look out across the open sky, yet it is one that whispers to us in myth, in geology, and in the quiet corners of our imagination. Beneath the ground you walk upon lies a world unseen, a hidden landscape stretching deeper than mountains are tall. It is a place of caverns and chambers, of stone cathedrals carved by time itself. And some have wondered, what if this world beneath us was not empty, not lifeless, but once a refuge, or perhaps even a home, for the very first civilization. You might close your eyes and picture it, the surface world windswept, unpredictable, vulnerable to storms and impacts from the sky. And then below, a shelter, still, constant, protected from the chaos above. What better place could there have been for the first intelligence, the first great architects of life, to endure? When we think of Earth, we often picture forests and oceans, mountains and deserts, the bright landscapes that have shaped our history. But beneath them, there lies another earth, an ancient earth, one sculpted in darkness. Rivers once flowed beneath continents, carving out tunnels that now lie dry and hollow. Lava left behind vast pipes, wide enough for cathedrals to stand within them. Pressure fractured the crust into vaults of silence where no sunlight has ever touched. In these places, the imagination begins to wander. If life found its way into oceans and swamps, why not into these caverns? And if intelligence arose, would it choose to hide, or perhaps begin its story? Civilizations on the surface leave monuments, stone towers, carvings, temples, things that endure in the open air. But what of civilizations that never built upward? What of a people who saw the open sky not as freedom, but as danger? For them, the ground would have been the shield, and darkness their first companion. It is strange to think that we live atop a planet that may still hold secrets not far below us. Most of Earth's crust remains unexplored. We map the surface of Mars and the Moon in detail, yet the spaces beneath our very feet remain in shadow. Less than a fraction of the world's underground systems have been charted. Entire continents may hold vast labyrinths, hidden like memory itself. And so, with this thought, a quiet question stirs. What if the story of civilization did not begin under sunlight, but in shadow? Geology tells us that Earth has always been dynamic, always shifting between creation and destruction. Entire surfaces have been remade, wiped clean by volcanoes, meteors, and ice. Species have risen and fallen, leaving little trace. If you wanted permanence, you would not build on the surface. You would not raise towers where fire from the sky might erase them, or where oceans might swallow them whole. You would build below. The world beneath our feet offers stability. Temperatures remain more constant. Structures carved into stone can endure for ages, and silence, deep and unbroken, creates the sense of eternity. Perhaps, if there was once a civilization before our own, older stranger, and forgotten it, might have chosen the underground as its refuge. You might picture them, not in detail, for detail belongs to fantasy, but as shadows against the stone. Architects of chambers so vast that they echo like the sound of planets moving. Walls lined with markings we would mistake for mineral veins, but which might, in truth, be script writing in languages no longer spoken. The deeper you imagine, the more the surface world feels fragile, temporary, like a thin film stretched over a much older body, and you realize what we call our world might only be half of it. The other half waits in silence below. Even human history whispers, This idea, cultures across the world carry legends of inner realms. The Greeks spoke of Hades, the Hindus spoke of Patala, a world beneath the earth. In Norse myth, there was Svartalfheim, the realm of hidden builders, who shaped great works in the dark. Native peoples of North America spoke of ancestors who first lived underground before emerging to the surface. Different voices, separated by oceans, by millennia, echoing the same thought, that something lives below, something waits below, something began below. Were these only metaphors, symbols for death or mystery? Or could they be fragments of memory, carried through ages, of a time when beings truly did dwell beneath the earth? Science, too, gives us reasons to wonder. We know life thrives far below the surface. Microbes, buried kilometers deep, survive in complete darkness, feeding off minerals and chemical reactions. Entire ecosystems exist without sunlight, in caves where blind fish swim in silent pools, and fungi climb damp walls like delicate lace. The underground, far from being barren, is alive. It breathes in ways we are only beginning to understand. If even primitive life can flourish here, could something greater not have taken root? Could intelligence have found its start in the same silence, where today only echoes remain? You might imagine walking now into a cavern. The ground beneath you gives way to a vast hollow, a chamber so wide the light of your lamp cannot reach the walls. The air is cool, heavy with the scent of stone, and there, in the silence, you wonder, has someone stood here before you? Was this chamber once shaped by hands, long ago? Time has a way of erasing certainty. Erosion reshapes walls, minerals cover, marks, collapse, buries, entrances. What might have been a doorway is now a jagged break. What might have been a carving is hidden beneath the flow of crystal. And so, the underground keeps its secrets. It does not tell us what was real and what was only imagined. But perhaps that is why it continues to call to us, because in its silence lies possibility. If Earth once held an alien colony, or a civilization before our own, then the underground is where we would expect to find them. A world hidden not only in space, but in time, safe from the great extinctions, from ice and fire, from floods and storms. We, the surface dwellers, look outward for signs of life beyond our world. But what if the very beings we search for are closer than we think, beneath us, rather than beyond us? It is a thought both unsettling and strangely comforting, for it suggests that Earth's story is deeper than the one we know, that we are not alone, not even in our own home. As you drift with this thought, you may feel the quiet weight of the ground beneath you, the bedrock, the layers of stone, the mantle pressing down. Somewhere within it, vast hollows lie unseen and untouched. You might imagine them still inhabited, perhaps faintly glowing with lights that are not fire, lit by energy we cannot name, or perhaps empty, their builders long gone, leaving only silence. And yet, silence itself is a kind of presence. What waits in those depths? We cannot know, but we can listen. And tonight, in this journey, we will. Thus begins our descent. We will walk gently through stories and stone, through science and myth, into the hidden layers of the planet we call home. We will ask what might have lived there, what might still live there, and why so many have carried this thought for so long. Beneath our feet lies a forgotten world, and perhaps, as we imagine it together, it will no longer feel quite so forgotten. Beneath the surface of our familiar world lies a hidden architecture, one that was not built by hands, but by the patient, endless forces of geology. When we speak of hollow spaces, we often think of caves' dark tunnels, dripping with water, carved by rivers over ages. But Earth holds far more than simple caves. Stretching deep into the crust are immense caverns, lava tubes, chambers so vast that an entire city could stand within them. These are the hollow spaces of ancient Earth. They are the breath of the planet, the quiet lungs through which time has flowed for millions upon millions of years. Imagine, if you will, drifting through them, not as a hurried explorer with ropes and lamps, but as a quiet presence, floating slowly through endless stone. The walls ripple with mineral veins, glistening faintly like stars captured in rock. Pools reflect the silence like liquid mirrors. You hear only the distant sound of water, a gentle drip, steady as a heartbeat. It is in these hollows that mystery gathers. They are hidden not only in darkness, but in time. Formed in ages when dinosaurs still walked, or even earlier, they endure, long after the creatures above have vanished. A hollow beneath your feet today might be older than the mountains you see on the horizon. Geologists tell us of the ways these spaces are born. Water, slowly moving through limestone, carves out chambers as it dissolves the rock. Lava, rushing and cooling, leaves behind long tubular passages where once fire flowed. Even glaciers, grinding across landscapes, create tunnels of ice and meltwater that resemble the veins of a living body across millions of years. These forces repeat themselves, hollowing, shaping, expanding. The planet, it seems, has always carried within it a secret interior labyrinth growing silently beneath the skin of the world. But for those who wonder about civilizations older than memory, these natural hollows raise another question. Were they only accidents of geology, or were they invitations? Think of the earliest surface dwellers, fragile, exposed, dependent on weather, sunlight, and shifting seasons. Then picture the underground, stable, temperate, protected from the violence of the sky. Meteors strike above, but deep below, one would barely hear the echo. Ice ages sweep the continents, but far underground, the chill cannot penetrate. Volcanoes darken skies, but stone ceilings remain unbroken. If you were to choose a place for endurance, a place to build, not for decades, but for millennia, where would you choose? The answer seems to whisper itself. The hollow spaces of ancient Earth were not only voids, they were possibilities. Throughout history, humans have stumbled upon fragments of this hidden world. In Turkey, the underground city of Derinkuyu descends layer upon layer beneath the soil, large enough to shelter tens of thousands. In Cappadocia, entire networks of tunnels twist beneath the surface, carved by unknown hands long before written history. In China, the caves of Longyu stretch vast and precise, carved into stone with a technique still not fully explained. Were these only the works of humans seeking refuge, or were they continuations, echoes of a much older tradition, one that remembers that survival lies beneath, not above? Every tunnel we find is like a doorway cracked open. We glimpse a shadow of what might be, then it vanishes into silence. Once more, science reminds us that hollow spaces extend much deeper than we can explore. The deepest caves known descend over 2 kilometers, yet the crust of the Earth stretches far beyond that. Within it are countless unknown hollows, collapsed, sealed, filled with silence. Technology has allowed us to scan some layers, yet most remain beyond our reach. When we stand on the surface, we think we know the Earth, but truly, we see only its skin. The body of the planet, its bones, its veins, its secret chambers remains hidden. And so, when we hear myths of inner worlds, of civilizations that went below, we wonder, could those stories have been born from real encounters with these hollows? Perhaps early humans stumbled upon chambers so vast and strange that they felt inhabited, even if no one was seen. Perhaps echoes carried through stone sounded like voices. Perhaps shadows against dripping walls looked like figures. Or perhaps they were not illusions at all. Imagine, for a moment, that a civilization older than ours did indeed seek shelter underground. They would not have had to dig every passage from nothing. Earth itself had already created the framework, the empty skeleton waiting to be filled. All they would need was to expand here, reinforce there, and adapt the hollows to their design. And unlike surface ruins, which erode in rain and wind, their works could endure. Sealed chambers remain untouched for millions of years. A tool dropped, a carving etched, a mark made, it could remain perfectly preserved, still hidden beneath layers of stone. Perhaps they are still there, waiting. Legends across the world hint at this. The Hopi people of North America tell of ancestors guided by ant-like beings into safe chambers below during times of destruction. In Europe, tales of dwarves and hidden folk speak of master builders who lived beneath mountains. In Central Asia, ancient myths describe tunnels leading to Agartha, a vast subterranean realm lit not by the sun, but by an inner glow. So many voices, so many ages, speaking of the same thing, a world beneath the world. To science, these may be metaphors, but to wonder, they are maps. Consider the possibility. If such a civilization once thrived below, how would we know? They might not leave ruins visible to us. Their lights would not shine into our night skies. Their cities would not rise like mountains. Instead, all evidence would be tucked away in silence, sealed by stone. Perhaps our instruments, as they grow sharper, will one day reveal faint anomalies deep below symmetries too precise to be natural, voids too regular to be accidents. Or perhaps their traces will always lie just beyond our reach, hidden by design. For if you lived underground, you would know secrecy, you would know silence, you would know how to remain unseen. But even without certainty, there is meaning in imagining. To picture these hollows as once alive, once echoing with voices, changes the way we see our planet. The ground beneath us becomes more than stone, it becomes a library, a memory bank, a hidden dimension of Earth's story. And in the slow, steady rhythm of thought, you realize, perhaps the hollows of ancient Earth are less empty than we think. Perhaps they are filled with absence that is not absence, but presence hidden too well to touch. Let your mind drift now, slowly, into one of those caverns. The air is still, the floor is smooth, worn not by boots, but by time. Water beads along, the ceiling glimmering faintly like stars in a night sky. You hear the quiet drip of centuries, the breathing of the earth itself in that silence. You may feel the sense that you are not the first, that someone, long before you, also stood here. Perhaps they listened as you are listening now. Perhaps they left, leaving only their silence behind. And perhaps, still deeper within the earth, others remain, waiting. The hollow spaces of ancient Earth remind us that our planet is more than what we see. Beneath us lies not just rock, but possibility. A labyrinth written by geology, a sanctuary shaped by time, a home perhaps for civilizations forgotten. What lies in those depths? We do not know, but we can imagine. And as we move forward, deeper into this journey, that imagination will carry us into the next question, not just whether the hollows exist, but whether they hold something more, something that might still breathe in the darkness. Since the beginning of storytelling, humans have looked beyond what they could see. They gazed at the stars, and imagined worlds above. They walked the forests and pictured spirits in the trees, and they looked down at the earth beneath their feet and wondered what might live below. Every culture, in every corner of the world, carries tales of hidden realms beneath the surface. They are stories whispered by firelight, passed through generations, woven with fear, wonder, and longing, and those separated by oceans and centuries. These legends share a strange resonance, as if they all echo the same unseen truth. Let us drift through them now, slowly, one by one. In the icy landscapes of the far north, the Inuits speak of a people called the Tunnet. They were said to be strong and mysterious, dwelling in places beneath the ground. Some describe them as helpers, others as rivals, but always as those who lived away from the open sky. When the cold winds blew across the Arctic tundra, the stories of the Tunnet reminded listeners that beneath the endless snow there might be warmth, shelter, and other lives moving unseen. Far away, in the deserts of North America, the Hopi tell of their ancestors' survival during times of great catastrophe. They speak of the Sipapuni, a sacred opening in the earth, through which their people emerged from an earlier world below. Guided by beings who resembled great ants, they found safety underground until the surface was once again habitable. Even today, Hopi traditions honor this connection between the surface, the below, and the possibility of return. Traveling across oceans to the mountains of Europe, we find myths of dwarves, kobolds, and hidden folk beings who crafted in darkness, forging tools and treasures beneath the stone. The Norse sagas describe Svartalfheim, the realm of dark elves, dwelling deep underground, masters of creation and secret knowledge. In Celtic stories, there are the Seediaith, who inhabit hollow hills and subterranean mounds, living parallel to humans yet always apart, just beneath the veil of earth. These tales do not picture the underground as empty. They see it as filled with builders, with watchers, with entire societies unseen but never absent. In the East, the myths stretch even further. In Tibet and Central Asia, there are stories of Agartha, a vast subterranean kingdom filled with radiant light and wisdom far beyond the surface world. Its people are said to live in harmony, untouched by war, disease, or famine, guided by higher knowledge. The entrance, it is whispered, lies through hidden tunnels in the Himalayas, leading not to a cavern, but to a realm. And in India, ancient texts describe the Patalian underworld realm, intricate and alive, where powerful beings, known as Nagas, dwell. These serpent-like guardians are said to control knowledge and treasure, living in palaces adorned with jewels far beneath the earth's crust. The Patala is not a place of punishment, but of hidden existence, another layer of the world. If we travel still further, into the rainforests of Mesoamerica, we hear of Shambhala, the Mayan underworld, a place of tests, trials, and encounters with strange beings. For the Maya, caves were gateways, sacred thresholds, where the surface and the underworld touched. Even today, archaeologists find offerings deep within cave systems, left as gifts. Two unseen presences. In South America, the Inca too believed in an underworld they called Ukupasha. It was not separate from life, but deeply woven into it. Seeds sprouted from below. Ancestors rested beneath the soil. Life, death, and renewal, all connected to the world underfoot. So many legends, so many voices, from the icy poles to the tropical forests, from deserts to mountains, the stories repeat. The underground is not barren. It is inhabited. It is purposeful. It is alive. Now pause for a moment and imagine this pattern differently. What if these were not only metaphors? What if, Hidden within each myth lies a memory, a fragment of something once encountered, something seen but not fully understood. Perhaps, long ago, humans glimpsed tunnels not made by chance, but shaped with intention. Perhaps they heard echoes that did not belong to them, or found chambers carved with precision, or even crossed paths with beings who dwelled below. Over time, memory blurs into story. Story becomes legend. Legend grows into myth, but the essence remains. The underground is not only rock and silence, it is another world. There is something almost universal about the human fear of the dark, of what lies below. And yet, paired with that fear is fascination. The same darkness that terrifies us also draws us in. We light torches, we lower ropes, we explore caves, compelled to know what waits inside. Myths may have been the first expression of this tension, a way to describe what we could sense but not explain. That the remarkable thing is how consistent they are. Whether it is dwarves in Europe, Nagas in India, or ant people in America, the themes repeat: advanced beings, knowledge hidden underground, protection in times of disaster, and cities carved into eternal darkness. It is as though humanity's collective memory remembers something it cannot consciously recall. Now, imagine yourself in those ancient times. The world above is harsh, unpredictable, violent. Storms rage, fires consume, ice covers the land. But then, you are led into the earth, through a tunnel, through a cave, into a space where the air is still, the temperature steady, the walls protective. Torches flicker against stone, and for the first time, you feel safety. Would you not, in telling this to your children, describe it as another world, a hidden world, perhaps a better one? And if those who guided you were not of your tribe, not even entirely human, would they not become legends of their own? Beings remembered not as ordinary, but as extraordinary. Their presence magnified into myth. Science tells us that memory is fragile. After a few generations, stories shift, adapt, and transform. Yet something survives. Across centuries, myths are like rivers changing course, breaking apart, rejoining, yet always carrying fragments of what came before. Perhaps the legends of underground realms are not inventions, but rivers carrying memories of real encounters with civilizations, or even species who chose to live below. This thought, soft and speculative, lingers like an echo in stone. Consider, too, the symbolic weight. To go underground is to descend, not only physically, but spiritually, into the subconscious, into hidden truths, into places where what is buried becomes revealed. Dreams themselves are often described as journeys below, into layers of mind that remain unseen during waking hours. Myths of inner worlds might then be more than stories of geography. They may also be reflections of human psychology, that deep within us, as deep within the earth, lie secrets we have yet to uncover. But what if both are true? What if the underground is both symbolic and literal, both the mind's hidden chamber and the planet's? As you listen now, picture the earth not only as a sphere of oceans and continents, but as a layered mystery. On the surface, life flourishes in sunlight. Beneath, in darkness, chambers stretch, caverns widen, tunnels run like veins. And within them, perhaps, voices once echoed, fires once burned, civilizations once thrived. You might picture streets carved from crystal, lit by glowing minerals. You might imagine chambers so vast that underground rivers wind through them like highways. You might hear the hum of machines hidden for ages, or the quiet chant of voices reciting ancient knowledge. The legends are our hints, our reminders, are whispers that the surface is not all there is. And so, when we gather them together, from the Inuit in the Arctic to the Hopi in the desert, to the Norse, the Celts, the Tibetans, the Maya, the Inqui, begin to see not separate tales, but a chorus, a collective dream, repeating the same message in many voices. There is another world beneath our feet. It may be a realm of spirits, or ancestors, or something older still, but it is always there, waiting as we drift further into this journey. We will carry these legends with us, for they are more than bedtime stories. They are maps, guiding us toward the next question. If so many myths tell of civilizations underground, then perhaps, just perhaps, an older race truly went below. Imagine, for a moment, a time before memory, a time before the rise of kingdoms, before cities and stone monuments, before writing pressed words into clay, a time when Earth itself was young in the human story, and the surface of the planet was not yet what it is today. In that forgotten age, could there have been others, beings older than our civilizations, older than our records, perhaps even older than our species, beings who looked at the Earth as their home, and yet chose to leave the surface behind? It is a possibility that lingers in the background of so many myths, not only that life existed below, but that life moved there intentionally, deliberately, with purpose. If so, what could have driven them beneath the surface? Perhaps it was survival. The Earth's history is scarred with catastrophe. Great extinctions swept across the surface again and again, volcanic fire that filled the skies with ash, asteroids that brought oceans crashing inland, ice ages that froze continents for thousands of years. Each event was a reminder of the fragility of life in the open air. To retreat underground would be to find shelter in permanence. Caves do not vanish in storms. Stone does not wither in drought. Beneath the surface, temperatures remain steady. Food can be cultivated in darkness, and rivers carve secret paths unseen. Perhaps in some distant age, when disaster loomed, an older race decided that survival meant moving inward into the earth, instead of away from it. Not in ships through the stars, but through tunnels into stone. Or perhaps it was not only survival, but choice. The surface is beautiful, but it is also dangerous, noisy, unpredictable. The underground offers quiet, protection, stability, to a civilization weary of the constant chaos of surface life. The Earth itself may have appeared as a sanctuary. Imagine a people who grew tired of storms and predators, of floods and fires, and instead turned to the patient stillness of stone. They carved chambers that echoed like cathedrals. They hollowed caverns so vast that rivers wound through them like silver threads. They created an existence not dependent on sunlight, but on other sources of power, heat, minerals, energy drawn from the heart of the planet itself. In time, they may have looked upon the surface with the same detachment that we reserve for distant stars. Something beautiful, yes, but no longer theirs. There is another possibility still. What if the underground was not simply a refuge, but a design? Perhaps these beings were not displaced from the surface, but were always meant to live below. Perhaps their bodies, their senses, their way of life was more suited to darkness, to silence, to the mineral pulse of the planet's core. We think of the surface as the natural home of life, but is it the only one? Life exists deep in ocean trenches, in boiling vents, in rock pores thousands of meters below ground. Even without sunlight, ecosystems flourish in secrecy. Microbes feed on stone, blind creatures navigate by touch and vibration. Entire webs of existence thrive in perpetual night. If such forms of life evolved in nature, could not a civilization, to arise in the depths. Perhaps they did not go underground. Perhaps they began there. You might imagine them differently, depending on your perspective. Some see them as ancient humans, cousins of our kind, who split from us long ago. Others picture something stranger, an intelligence unlike ours, shaped by conditions we can hardly imagine. In the dark, eyes may have grown large, sensitive, glowing faintly to capture the smallest hint of light. Or perhaps vision was abandoned altogether, replaced by senses unknown to us, listening to vibrations in stone, feeling the faintest shifts of the earth's breath. Their skin might be pale, translucent, like the blind cave fish that dwell in subterranean rivers. Or perhaps armored and strong, built to move through rock. Their technology, too, would have been different. Where we turned to wood and bronze, they may have turned to crystal and mineral. Where we built towers to rise toward the sky, they may have carved halls to descend ever deeper. Where we learned to measure time by the sun, they may have followed the pulse of the earth's magnetic field, or the rhythm of its hidden waters. If such a race existed, we would not easily know it. Their records would not be etched on stone walls where wind and rain could erode them. Their monuments would not rise above ground, visible to satellites and explorers. Their creations would be hidden, protected beneath layers of rock. It may be that their legacy lies just beyond the reach of our tools, just beneath the edge of our knowing. And yet, there are hints. Archaeologists sometimes find structures beneath the earth, tunnels, chambers, labyrinths that raise questions. Some are explained as natural caves, later shaped by human hands. Others are marked as mysteries, too large, too precise, too unusual for the societies known to have lived above. From the vast underground cities of Cappadocia in Turkey, to the labyrinthine networks beneath South America, to the hidden catacombs of Europe and Asia, the pattern repeats. Humanity has built below. But perhaps, in some cases, humanity only inherited what was already there. Perhaps the oldest tunnels are not ours. Perhaps they belonged to those who went before. And if an older race did go below, where are they now? One thought is that they did not vanish. They adapted, they continued, quietly, steadily, without the noise and destruction that marks human history. They survived. While empires rose and fell on the surface, their world endured in silence. They may look upon us as children, restless, fragile, noisy children who play at the edge of their domain. Or perhaps they avoid us altogether, content to remain apart, letting our world spin above theirs. Another thought, more somber, is that they did not last, that even the underground, for all its safety, is not eternal. Perhaps they withered away, leaving only empty halls. Perhaps they ascended, not upward, but inward, becoming something else entirely. Or perhaps they are still here, but hidden. Watching, it is easy to dismiss such ideas as fantasy, and yet the human mind returns to them again and again. Legends of those who live below, myths of ancient builders, strange accounts of unexplained sounds rising from the earth, or of tunnels that lead deeper than they should. We do not know, we cannot know. But in the quiet spaces of imagination, the possibility is soothing, that we are not the first, that others have been here before us, survived catastrophes, adapted, endured, that the earth carries not only fossils in its layers, but civilizations. Now imagine again, you are standing at the mouth of a cavern. The air is cool, carrying a faint scent of stone. Behind you lies the world of wind and sunlight. Before you, darkness stretches. You take a step, and another. Your torch flickers. The sound of dripping water echoes softly. Deeper still, the walls grow smooth, too smooth for nature alone. There are marks, lines, the faint traces of tools. You realize you are not the first to walk here. Someone carved these halls long ago, and in that moment, you feel it, the weight of ages, the echo of a choice made by beings long before you were born, beings who left the surface behind, and who may even now still walk in the spaces beneath your feet. This thought lingers like a shadow. If an older race truly went below, then our myths are not inventions, but memories. And if our memories hold truth, then perhaps we share this planet not only with the visible, but with the hidden dot. As we drift deeper into this exploration, we must ask, what would such underground cities look like? What lives would unfold in eternal darkness? And how close might they be to us? Beneath the surface of the earth, beyond the reach of sunlight, there is a silence unlike any other. It is not the silence of night, broken by the rustle of leaves or the distant call of an animal. It is a deeper silence, layered with the weight of stone, the press of ages, the stillness of time itself. Imagine that within this silence, there are cities, not the cities of glass and steel that stretch upward into the sky today, not the crowded streets filled with light and sound. These would be different. These would be carved into the very bones of the earth-vast chambers. Winding corridors, bridges of stone suspended above underground rivers, plazas glowing faintly with some unknown light. They would not be built to rise. They would be built to endure. The idea of underground cities is not only the realm of imagination. Across the world, there are places where people, even in recorded history, have gone below and made lives in stone. In Cappadocia, in the heart of Turkey, entire communities once lived underground. They carved soft volcanic rock into dwellings, churches, stables, even wine cellars. Whole populations could retreat beneath the surface, hidden from invaders, protected from harsh weather. Some of these underground cities descend from many levels tunnels that weave downward chambers connected by narrow shafts, ventilation systems that bring fresh air even far below. And yet, as impressive as these are, they feel almost like echoes of something greater, something older. What if such efforts were only a faint reminder of what had once been? Picture a civilization, not hiding temporarily, but fully committed to life beneath the ground. Their architects would think differently than ours. They would not dream of towers that reach to the clouds, but of caverns that expand like oceans under stone. Walls would be smoothed, not for beauty alone, but to shape sound, to create spaces where voices carry clearly across vast halls. Water would not be brought in, but drawn from underground rivers, channeled through aqueducts lit with crystals or glowing fungi. Light itself might be cultivated soft, bioluminescent organisms woven into the architecture, filling streets with a steady radiance, neither harsh nor dim. Imagine a city square, hundreds of meters beneath the surface. The air is cool, freshened by carefully carved shafts. A waterfall descends from higher rock, its mist captured to water underground gardens. Around the square rise carved facades, homes etched directly into stone, their entrances marked by flowing patterns that glow faintly in the dark. A world that never knew the sun. It raises questions. How would time be measured without sunrise and sunset? Perhaps by water clocks, or by the rhythm of underground rivers pulsing with seasonal floods. Perhaps by the growth of plants adapted to the faint light, or perhaps, in their timeless halls, time itself would lose its meaning. Days and nights might merge into one long, continuous existence. What would community feel like in such places? Imagine the closeness, the interconnectedness, when the world outside is absent. In every chamber, in every corridor, life would be shared. Families living side by side, their voices blending in the quiet air. Celebrations glowing with soft lights that ripple across cavern ceilings. Storytellers speaking in echoes that carry 4 minutes through the stone. There would be no horizon, no sky, no stars. And yet, perhaps, they would find new skies domes of rock, transformed into canvases of glowing pigments. Constellations etched in stone, the ceiling itself becoming a map of their imagination. In some legends, these underground cities were not only safe havens, they were places of power across cultures, from Native American stories of the Hopi to Tibetan myths of Shambhala. There are whispers of advanced civilizations beneath the ground, not hiding, but thriving. They are often described as possessing wisdom beyond ours, knowledge of the earth and the cosmos, technologies that seem almost magical to us. If there were such cities, their technology would not mirror ours. We mastered fire beneath the open sky, but underground, fire alone would choke the air. They would need something else, something cleaner, quieter. Perhaps they harnessed geothermal heat, drawing power from the molten heart of the planet. Perhaps they learned to cultivate glowing organisms, turning biology into light. Perhaps they shaped crystals in ways we cannot yet imagine, storing energy in lattice and stone. Their cities may not have clattered with machines, but hummed with resonance, with the quiet pulse of energy drawn from the depths. And then, the greatest question: if such cities were built, could some still exist? In the 20th century, explorers found caverns so vast they seemed impossible. Sun Dune in Vietnam, for example, stretches large enough to hold entire skyscrapers, complete with its own forest and weather. The Earth contains spaces that dwarf anything we have built. Spaces waiting, silent, hidden beneath our feet. What if, in some of those places, the marks of intelligence still linger? Not crude tunnels, but structures aligned too perfectly to be natural, carvings too precise, patterns too deliberate. It is a thought that brings a quiet shiver. Perhaps, deep below, there are entire worlds untouched, their halls still echoing with the footsteps of those who lived there long ago. There is a strange comfort in imagining such cities. On the surface, history feels fragile. Civilizations rise and fall, their ruins left to crumble in wind and rain. But beneath the earth, time slows. Wood decays, but stone endures. A city beneath the surface could last not only centuries, but millennia. If such places exist, they may carry the memory of a civilization long forgotten, the songs of a people who chose silence over sunlight, the architecture of beings who thought not in seasons, but in ages. And perhaps, in quiet moments, when you stand near a cave entrance and feel the cool air drifting outward, you are breathing the same air that once carried their voices. Now, picture yourself descending. Step by step, you move through a narrow shaft, the light from the surface fading behind you. The air grows cooler, heavier. The sound of dripping water echoes faintly. Then, suddenly, you emerge into a vast cavern. The ceiling arches high above, studded with glowing crystals. Below, streets spread in orderly lines, carved into the rock itself. Stone bridges cross a river that flows silently through the city. In the distance, you see facades rising like temples, their entrances framed with glowing designs. There is no wind, no weather, no sky, and yet the place feels alive. This is not a ruin. This is not an echo. This is a city, complete, enduring, waiting in the eternal darkness. Whether real or imagined, such visions carry with them a profound question. What does it mean to belong to the earth? Must life cling only to the surface, to sunlight and sky? Or is there, perhaps, another way? An older wave has always existed below us, hidden, enduring, unseen. The earth is vast. Its crust is thick with mystery. We have explored so little of it. What if beneath our feet, even now, lies a civilization not lost, but hidden? A civilization whose cities hum softly in the silence, carved in eternal darkness. And so, as we linger on this thought, another unfolds. If such cities exist, and if they were built by hands older than our own, then what stories would they tell? What wisdom would they carry? And what would it mean if we are not the first, but only the latest, to walk this world? Beneath the earth, where light does not reach, life must adapt in ways that are subtle, ingenious, and enduring. If there truly were civilizations hidden in the stone depths, their very survival would depend upon mastery of something unique technologies, designed not to conquer the surface, but to thrive forever in darkness. Not the kind of technology we know today, loud with engines and wires, fragile against time, but something quieter, smoother, eternal. A technology that could hide forever. Think for a moment about the world, you know. Our machines are temporary. They rust, they break down, they require constant input of fuel and maintenance. We build skyscrapers of glass and steel, but leave them untended for centuries, and they crumble back to dust. Even our data, stored on delicate drives and screens, fades quickly when time runs long. Now imagine a people who chose not the surface, but the underground. For them, impermanence could not be tolerated. Theirs would need to be a technology of continuity, a design philosophy rooted not in growth and speed, but in silence, endurance, and concealment. How might such a civilization endure for tens of thousands of years, hidden just below our feet? The first challenge would be energy. For us, the sun provides most of what we need. Plants capture its light. Solar panels turn its rays into power. But beneath the surface, where sunlight never penetrates, a hidden civilization would require something different. One possibility is the earth itself. Geothermal energy. Deep within the crust, heat seeps upward from the molten mantle. Today, we tap into it with wells and turbines, but our methods are crude. Imagine a people who mastered it long ago. Instead of fire or oil, their warmth, their light, their very existence could be tied to the constant breath of the earth. You might picture great crystalline chambers, where shafts channel rising heat into natural generators, machines grown, not built, that hum endlessly as long as the planet's core remains hot. They would never run out, never need replacement, simply existing in quiet harmony with the Earth's own heartbeat. But light would still be needed. In the absolute blackness of caves, vision becomes useless without it. Fire would suffocate the air. Candles would devour oxygen. What else could there be? Nature already offers hints. Deep-sea creatures glowing with bioluminescence, fungi that emit a soft green light, minerals that shimmer when struck by subtle energies. Perhaps such people would cultivate light itself, gardens of luminous plants, groves of glowing trees, walls inlaid with crystals that radiate gentle brilliance. Their cities might never know harsh daylight, but instead a twilight glow, warm, steady, endless, the kind of light you could sleep in, dream in, live in without shadows. And perhaps this is part of their secret. Technology so natural, so seamless, it could be mistaken for the earth itself. Water would be the next challenge. For us, rivers and rainfall are obvious. Underground, it is less predictable, but not absent. Entire aquifers lie hidden below the surface, some containing waters that have been sealed away for millions of years. Imagine this water, harnessed with care, channeled through smooth tunnels, purified not by chemicals but by mineral filters, flowing endlessly in controlled currents, not noisy fountains, but quiet streams trickling through the heart of their cities. A system so elegant it might appear alive. Food, too, would be needed. Without the sun, there could be no wheat, no cornfields, no orchards of apples. Yet perhaps they learned to grow crops by other means. We already experiment with hydroponics, with LED light that nourishes plants. Imagine if they perfected this ages ago, gardens grown under glowing crystals, mushrooms cultivated in vast fields, root crops thriving in rich underground soil. Their diet may not resemble ours, but it could sustain them indefinitely, without dependence on the fragile surface world. And then, communication. Above ground, sound is carried by wind, by the open air. Underground echoes distort, voices bounce off stone, but stone can also carry resonance in powerful ways. Today, scientists study how vibrations travel through rock, even using them to sense earthquakes or distant movements. Perhaps, an older people learned to shape their messages through these resonances, words humming through stone like invisible rivers. Their language may not have been only sound, but vibration. A technology of communication that required no wires, no satellites, only the earth itself as the medium. A city a mile away could feel the hum of another, faint and steady, like a pulse. To us, it would be silence. To them, it would be conversation. Now, consider preservation. If their goal was to endure, their tools, their structures, even their knowledge, would need to last beyond decay. Our books fade, our plastics crumble, our metals corrode, but stone endures. Imagine if their libraries were not paper, not screens, but etched into crystal, each shard carrying more information than we could store on our largest servers. Knowledge encoded in the very lattice of minerals, designed to remain unchanged for tens of thousands of years. A hidden civilization could have left messages scattered in the earth, invisible to us, waiting to be unlocked. Perhaps the strange crystalline structures we sometimes find are not only natural, but intentional data hidden in plain sight, encoded in the geometry of the mineral itself. But perhaps their greatest technology was not energy, not light, not food, not even communication. Perhaps it was concealment, to remain unseen. A civilization underground would need not only to survive, but to hide. From us, from time, perhaps even from something greater. We think of camouflage as the tool of animals, of octopuses that blend with the seafloor, of insects that mimic leaves, but could entire cities camouflage themselves? Imagine walls carved so perfectly into stone that they are indistinguishable from natural rock. Tunnels sealed by shifting mechanisms that close seamlessly, leaving no trace. Structures designed to appear like ordinary caves to the untrained eye. Perhaps the entrances to their world are not gone, but simply hidden. And perhaps, sometimes, we stumble too close. Explorers have long told stories of caves that seemed endless, tunnels that led farther than expected, voices echoing where no one else was present, myths of entire realms beneath the earth, filled with light and life. What if these are not merely stories, but faint encounters with a technology meant to remain unseen? Another possibility is even stranger. What if concealment was not only physical, but perceptual? We know that sound can alter mood, that certain frequencies change the way we feel. What if such a people mastered the science of perception itself? They could have created vibrations or fields that bend the mind, that make you overlook an entrance even when staring directly at it. To us, it would appear as nothing, just stone, just shadow. But to them, it would be a doorway. Such a technology would mean they do not simply hide from view, they hide from thought itself. If so, then perhaps they are not long vanished. Perhaps they are still here. You walk across the landscape, unaware that a city lies below your feet. Entire communities could hum in silence beneath mountains, beneath deserts, beneath oceans. Invisible not because they are gone, but because they have chosen to remain unseen. We build towers and satellites to broadcast our presence to the cosmos. They may have perfected the art of silence, a civilization that has mastered survival. Light, food, water, knowledge, and concealment could last not for centuries, but for ages beyond count. They could endure as long as the earth itself. This thought carries with it a strange quietness. If such a people exists, their technology would not glitter with chrome and wires. It would not look like ours at all. It would be silent, blended, hidden, perhaps even alive, grown as much as built. The perfect technology would be one that disappears into the background of existence, working so seamlessly it is no longer noticed. Just as your heartbeat sustains you without thought, so too would their machines sustain them forever, without drawing attention. And so, in imagining them, we must ask ourselves, what is true power? Is it the ability to dominate, to be seen, to build structures that rise higher than mountains? Or is it the ability to endure quietly, unseen, leaving no trace yet never ceasing? Our cities are fragile, our empires fall, but a civilization below, with technology that hides forever, could be the true masters of time. And if they are, they're still listening, still watching, still humming in the stone beneath us. Then, perhaps, we are not the first, nor the greatest, nor the most enduring of Earth's children. We are only the surface dwellers, brief and bright, while below, the deeper story of civilization continues quietly, eternally, hidden in the eternal dark. In the silence of stone, where the air is cool and heavy, where no sunbeam has ever fallen, it is tempting to imagine that life underground might be solely human or solely of this earth. But what if it was not? What if the story of a hidden civilization is not a story of human ingenuity alone, but of guidance, of something older, wiser, and perhaps not entirely of this world? Hello again to the imagination of the unseen. Picture, if you will, a world long before our histories, a time when humanity was still learning fire, still shaping the first tools. On the surface, our ancestors stumbled through forests and savannas, their lives fragile and fleeting. But perhaps beneath, another kind of teacher walked with them, hands not human, shaping destinies in secret. Could the first steps toward underground life have been influenced, or even initiated, by visitors from beyond the stars? Across human cultures, the myths converge. There are stories of beings descending from the sky gods, who walked among men, who offered knowledge, who taught agriculture, astronomy, and medicine. But there are also stories less often told, of beings who did not come from above, but from below. Ancient texts whisper of hidden masters, shining people, luminous figures who dwelled in the earth's belly, who sometimes emerged to guide and then retreated again into shadow. Are these simply tales of imagination, or memories of encounters we no longer fully understand? If a civilization underground does exist, perhaps it was not born from humanity's own will at all. Perhaps it was seeded its beginnings, nurtured by alien hands that recognized the Earth's subterranean labyrinths as safe havens. Think about it. If you were travelers from another world, and you arrived upon a young, volatile Earth, where would you go? The surface is dangerous. Meteors fall, volcanoes erupt, ice ages come and go. But beneath the crust, there is stability, warmth, safety. A place where time stretches, unbroken. A place to build without interference, to wait, to endure. Perhaps, then, the underground world is not only human, it is alien in its very origin. Imagine such beings, not humanoid perhaps, not flesh as we know it, but something that could withstand both space and stone. Their presence might not even be visible to us. What if they existed as beings of light, of vibration, of energy so subtle that stone posed no barrier? They could pass through matter as effortlessly as we walk through air. Or perhaps they were more tangible. Engineers beyond our imagination, capable of carving entire cities from bedrock with technologies that leave no rubble, no scars. Machines that could melt rock into smooth surfaces. Corridors that stretch like arteries. Chambers polished as if the earth itself had grown them. If so, then the hidden cities are not only human achievements, but collaborations, symbiosis between humanity and something older. Stranger, there are legends that hint at this possibility. The Hopi people of North America speak of the ant people who guided their ancestors into caverns during times of catastrophe, teaching them how to survive beneath the earth until it was safe to return to the surface. In Tibet, there are tales of Shambhala, a hidden kingdom of wisdom, accessible only through secret tunnels beneath the mountains. In South America, myths of subterranean serpent gods whisper of glowing beings dwelling beneath lakes and volcanoes. Each story, from continents far apart, seems to suggest the same thing: a presence underground, a guiding intelligence, not entirely of this world. If alien hands did shape life beneath, what kind of guidance would they have given? Perhaps they would have taught technologies suited not to conquest, but to survival in darkness. Knowledge of geothermal power, of crystal-grown light, of biological engineering that allows plants to thrive without the sun. Perhaps they would have shown humanity how to cloak entire cities, how to remain invisible, how to pass through history without ever being detected, and perhaps, most importantly, they would have taught patience, for to live underground, in silence, for thousands of years, one must move to the rhythm of deep time, not the seasons of crops, not the lifespans of kings, but the slow breathing of the planet itself. You might wonder, why? Why would visitors from the stars guide us below? Why would they choose secrecy over open rule? Perhaps they did not come to rule at all. Perhaps they came to hide. Consider the vastness of the cosmos. If there are civilizations among the stars, then there are also dangers, predators, hunters, wars waged across galaxies. To survive, one must sometimes disappear. Maybe Earth was not simply a planet they found, but a refuge, a sanctuary where they could lie low beneath layers of stone, beyond the gaze of hostile eyes. And in doing so, they brought humanity with them, teaching a small fragment of us how to endure alongside them in the dark. We, then, are not just children of Earth, but children of a union shaped by the quiet guardians who made the underground their own. Think of the evidence that teases us from the edges of history. Strange tunnels that stretch for miles beneath Europe, their purpose unknown. Caverns in South America that seem too precise, too vast, to have been carved by primitive tools. Stones fused as if melted, as if shaped by energies we cannot explain. Could these be remnants of alien technologies, long abandoned or hidden, blending so perfectly with the rock that we mistake them for natural? And what of the strange lights sometimes reported in caves, glows with no source, moving orbs of luminescence that vanish when pursued? What if these are not natural at all, but traces of the same beings who once guided, who still linger? Perhaps they did more than guide humanity underground. Perhaps they altered humanity itself. To adapt to darkness requires changes. Eyes that see in dim light, skin that adjusts to damp air, bodies attuned to minerals and vibrations rather than sunlight. What if there are humans below us, not like us, but changed descendants of those who followed the alien guides, shaped by their science to better endure beneath the stone? To us, they would seem otherworldly, pale, luminous, tall or small in ways unfamiliar. We might think them alien, but they would be both human, yet also not entirely. And then comes the most curious thought of all. What if the aliens never left? What if they are still here, hidden in chambers deeper than we have ever reached? Perhaps they watch us, even now, their presence felt not in sight, but in the quiet nudges of history. A sudden leap in our knowledge, a strange dream that inspires invention, a myth that will not fade. Maybe their guidance continues subtly, invisibly, not to rule, not to dominate, but to ensure that humanity does not destroy itself before it is ready to join them in the greater cosmos. The surface world may belong to us, but the world beneath, that may still be shared. Imagine walking one evening across a field. The stars glitter above you, the soil crunches beneath your steps. You think only of the night sky, of the vastness beyond, and yet just below, not 20 meters beneath your feet, a chamber hums with light. Beings older than our species converse softly in tones you cannot hear. Gardens glow in eternal twilight. You pass above, never knowing, but perhaps they notice you. Perhaps they always notice. To think of alien hands guiding life underground is to realize how little we know of our own world. We look outward to the stars, building telescopes, searching for signals. But perhaps the first signal is not out there, but here, beneath. If they are there, then the story of Earth is not only ours, it is shared. Our surface histories are only one version, while a parallel history has unfolded in silence below. We are the surface, children of Earth, but beneath us may lie the true heirs of alien knowledge, waiting in patience, hidden by choice, and so we must ask ourselves, would they reveal themselves? Or is the lesson they teach silence itself, that to endure, one must sometimes remain unseen, hidden not out of fear, but out of wisdom? If so, then perhaps the greatest gift these alien hands have given is not light, or power, or food, or knowledge. It is the very ability to remain hidden forever. And, if that is true, then the underground is not empty. It is full of memory, of presence, of guidance that continues in ways we cannot perceive. The stone beneath us may not only be stone, it may be alive with watchers. Imagine the surface of Earth as we know it today. Sunlight pours across forests, rivers flow in winding silver lines, clouds drift lazily across the skies. To us, this seems natural. This is our home, our rightful place beneath the open heavens. But what if it was never truly ours? What if the surface itself has always been a borrowed stage, while the true civilization of this planet has belonged to another realm, hidden beneath our very feet? The thought is unsettling, yet strangely comforting. For if the underground was always occupied, always alive with intelligence, then the surface world may be nothing more than a thin veneer, a mask stretched across a deeper and older truth. So what signs might reveal that this surface, the world of trees, seas, and skies was? never their domain, that the hidden people, or perhaps hidden beings, were never meant to live above. We begin with the way myths describe them. Over and over, stories of subterranean civilizations depict them not as people of light, but as people of shadow creatures who do not tolerate the sun. They are pale, luminous, adapted to darkness. Their eyes are described as vast, able to pierce gloom, or else as black pools that see what ours cannot. Legends speak of their avoidance of daylight, of their reluctance to walk openly among us. If they do emerge, it is always under cover of night, or during storms when the sky is clouded. It is as if the surface is poisonous to them, an environment they were never meant to rule. Consider, too, the fragility of the surface compared to the deep. On the surface, every civilization is exposed. Droughts can wither crops, storms can topple empires, ice ages can sweep entire peoples away. Yet below, the temperature remains steady, the stone constant, the waters flowing. If an advanced intelligence were to choose a place for permanence, would it not be wiser to live where volcanoes, floods, and meteors cannot so easily reach? Perhaps this is why the underground has been the true seat of civilization all along, because it is the only place where time moves slowly enough for eternity to take root. The surface has another limitation. It leaves traces. Cities crumble into ruins, temples collapse into dust. Yet, underground, things endure. Caverns carved 100,000 years ago would still be waiting. Walls polished by unknown tools would remain untouched, protected by the very earth that conceals them. And so, perhaps, the lack of ancient ruins on the surface is itself a sign. Maybe the reason we cannot find a civilization older than our own is not because it never existed, but because it was never above at all. The ruins may be real, just not where we expect them. You might wonder, what of the stories of gods who descended from the skies? What of the lights above, the visitors from the heavens? Perhaps both are true. Perhaps the ones who came from above found safety not in ruling the open world, but in descending immediately into the earth. From that moment onward, the surface was never truly theirs. Instead, they made the depths their kingdom, leaving us to populate the fragile surface, to rise and fall, while they watched in patience below. There are signs, too, in the natural world, in caves deep beneath Europe, South America, and Asia. Explorers have sometimes reported strange anomalies. Walls cut at precise angles, as though shaped by unknown hands. Caverns that seem too symmetrical, too deliberate, to be entirely natural. In Turkey, the underground city of Derinkuyu stretches down levels upon levels, carved from volcanic stone. Though it is attributed to human hands of antiquity, some passages are so intricate, so complex, that they suggest a design far beyond simple survival. And then there are tunnels, miles long, some stretching across entire continents. They are narrow, winding, sometimes perfectly straight, as though drilled. What purpose could such vast networks serve, if not to link communities hidden beneath the earth? Imagine standing in a forest. All around you, trees sway in the wind, the air filled with birdsong. You think you are in the heart of wilderness, but perhaps, far below, a city hums silently, its streets illuminated with crystal light, its gardens blooming without the sun. The forest above is nothing more than a cover, a camouflage for what is real. The surface, then, is only a mask. The signs also exist in our unease with the underground. Have you noticed the fear many people feel when entering caves? The way the air changes, heavy, suffocating. The way shadows move strangely. The silence so complete it almost rings. Perhaps this fear is instinct. Perhaps we sense that we are intruding into a domain that was never ours. We belong to the surface world of sun and air. But something in us recoils from the stone corridors because, deep down, we know they already belong to someone else. There are also curious moments in human history when knowledge seems to appear suddenly, without origin. Metalworking, astronomy, geometry skills that arise too quickly, too advanced for the time. Is it possible that these were gifts, that emissaries emerged briefly from beneath, offering guidance before retreating again? If so, then the surface is not the true source of human progress. It is only the stage on which wisdom borrowed from below has been acted out. But perhaps the strongest sign lies in time itself. We measure civilization by what we see above: pyramids, temples, monuments that rise into the air. Yet all of these are fleeting. None are older than a handful of millennia, and yet the earth is billions of years old. If intelligence arose once before humanity, long before we built cities, it is unlikely to have chosen the unstable surface. It would have chosen the depths, where records do not weather away, where civilizations can exist for ages without ever being revealed. Thus, the very absence of visible proof may itself be proof. The silence of the surface is not emptiness, it is concealment. Picture a hidden people now, beneath your very steps. They do not see the surface as home. To them, the open sky is alien, the sun a blazing intruder. Their true world is one of stone. Pillars of glowing rivers, of great caverns that echo like cathedrals. They walk paths we cannot see. They rest in chambers far below. When they look upward, toward the crust and the surface above, they do not see their land. They see only the fragile world of surface dwellers, children playing in light. For them, the surface has never been home. It was always ours, not theirs. And yet, sometimes, their influence lingers. The myths of hidden masters, of teachers from the dark, of knowledge whispered to kings and shamans. These are the faint fingerprints of an underground civilization reminding us of their existence without ever stepping into daylight. Perhaps this is deliberate. Perhaps they wish us to know just enough to wonder, but not enough to find, because the truth, if revealed, might not only alter our history, might reveal that the surface was never truly humanity's to begin with. Think of it another way. We assume that Earth is a planet of the surface, that life evolved here to bask in sunlight. But what if Earth itself is a planet of the underground, a world whose real ecosystems, real civilizations, thrive beneath, while the surface is merely decoration? To such beings, we would be the outsiders, the invaders, fragile creatures who insist on living in the most unstable, dangerous layer of the planet. We call ourselves the dominant species of Earth, but perhaps to them, we are merely surface dwellers, fleeting, destined to fade while the underground endures. So the signs are many, legends of pale people of the dark, tunnels that stretch without reason, cities carved too deep, too intricate, sudden leaps in knowledge without origin, the absence of ruins older than a few thousand years, the unease we feel when descending into caves. Each one whispers the same possibility. The surface was never theirs. It was never meant to be. Their true world has always been below. And so, as you walk through your day under the bright expanse of the sky, consider this: beneath you lies not just stone, not just layers of soil, but perhaps the living memory of civilizations hidden and enduring, civilizations that never needed the surface, never cared for the sun, civilizations whose patience is measured not in centuries, but in epochs. We are creatures of the open air. But below, there may be those who have always belonged to shadow. The surface, beautiful as it is, may only be a stage. The true play, the true story of Earth, unfolds where the sunlight cannot reach, and perhaps that has always been the way. Imagine the quietness of the night. You step outside, the stars above, scattered like scattered embers across the velvet sky. The air is still, the world around you at rest. Yet, in that stillness, you may sense something deeper, above but beneath, watching, not as legends, not as myths, but as real and enduring beings who never left their subterranean domains. Beings who do not need to show themselves, for they have always been present, unseen yet attentive. The idea is as ancient as our oldest fears. Humanity has always believed it is being observed by gods, by ancestors, by spirits, by hidden intelligences. But what if the watchers are not in the heavens at all? What if they are only meters, or miles, beneath our feet? Their gaze would not come from the sky, but from below, through layers of rock and silence, through tunnels and caverns that weave like arteries under the skin of the earth. Consider how strange it is that humanity has explored the oceans more than it has the deep earth. We look outward to space, dreaming of distant planets. Yet, under our own feet, lies a frontier we hardly touch. It is as though something keeps us away, perhaps fear, perhaps instinct, or perhaps it is not avoidance at all, but subtle guidance, a quiet influence from below that nudges us away from their world, because if they are still there, they may not want us wandering too far into their domain. How might such watchers exist? Picture a city deep underground, not of stone, but of light, walls glowing softly, powered by crystals or energies unknown to us. Great halls carved into caverns, where silence hums like music. A society not dependent on sun or sky, but on the slow and steady pulse of the planet itself. In such a place, time would move differently. Civilizations could endure for tens of thousands, even millions of years, while surface empires rose and fell. Imagine them observing us, surface dwellers, as we build and collapse again. They would watch with patience, for their own lifespans, whether biological or extended by technology, might make our centuries look like seconds. We would appear to them as children, playing in the fragile sunlight. Perhaps they do not merely watch, but occasionally intervene. Think of the moments when history pivots unexpectedly, a sudden invention, a surge of knowledge, a mysterious vision experienced by a prophet or a leader. These moments arrive without clear cause, as though planted into the fabric of human thought. Could these be the whispers of underground watchers? They would never need to appear openly. A single suggestion, a single gift of knowledge, a single dream passed into the mind of a surface dweller might be enough to alter the course of history. And then, like shadows, they withdraw again. There are those who believe strange lights in the sky are not always from above, that sometimes what we call unidentified flying objects are not flying at all, but rising, emerging briefly from hidden openings in the earth before disappearing again. Think of mountains long held sacred, caves forbidden to enter, regions where compasses spin wildly and electronics falter. Could these be places where the watchers come close to the surface, keeping their distance, yet allowing glimpses of their presence? If so, then they have always been here, not as visitors from other stars, but as neighbors beneath our feet. But why would they still watch us? Perhaps out of curiosity. To them, we are a younger civilization, stumbling, learning, repeating mistakes. Watching us may be like watching children grow, or perhaps their gaze is more practical. If the surface is fragile, prone to war, to environmental collapse, then we, the surface dwellers, could one day threaten their hidden world. In that case, their watchfulness is protection, ensuring that our chaos never spills downward. And perhaps there is another reason. Perhaps they watch because they remember what it was like to live above. And though they can no longer dwell in sunlight, they find beauty in seeing us walk through it. We are their link to a world they abandoned long ago. Signs of watchers are scattered in folklore in many cultures. There are stories of hidden beings who dwell underground, yet keep watch over humans. Some are protectors, others tricksters, some indifferent. In Tibet, legends speak of Shambhala, a radiant kingdom below. The details differ, but the pattern is the same: an unseen presence concealed beneath, observing the surface world. Perhaps these were not mere metaphors. Perhaps they were memories of encounters, softened by myth over generations. Consider also the strange phenomenon of being watched itself. Have you ever felt it? That subtle prickle at the back of your neck, the inexplicable certainty that eyes are on you though no one is there. Science often attributes this to heightened awareness, to instincts left over from evolution. Yet, in those quiet moments, perhaps the sensation is real. Perhaps it is not eyes above, but minds below, brushing briefly against our consciousness. The watchers may not look with eyes at all. Their observation could be through means we cannot name: fields of energy, subtle vibrations, currents of thought. To them, our minds might be open books, our dreams visible, our histories transparent. And so, when you feel you are being watched, maybe you are, not from the sky, from below. But if they are still watching, why remain hidden? This question lingers like a shadow. Perhaps secrecy is survival. To reveal themselves openly might invite fear, hostility, or worship, none of which serve them. It may be safer to remain myths, for myths are rarely hunted. Or perhaps they are bound by choice. Maybe their culture values separation, believing the surface is not theirs to interfere with. Yet separation does not mean absence. Watching may be their compromise, remaining unseen, but never uninformed. Think for a moment of ants scurrying across the ground. You observe them, fascinated, but you do not step into their world. You do not introduce yourself, nor explain your technology. You simply watch, perhaps altering their environment slightly, but never revealing your true nature. To them, you are invisible. To you, they are fragile creatures, unaware of your gaze. Could we be to the watchers what ants are to us? Entirely unaware of the intelligence that looks upon us, studying our movements with patience. And if they watch, then surely they have seen everything. They have seen the rise of kingdoms, the collapse of empires. They have seen the first fire lit, the first wheel turn, the first words written. They have watched wars, discoveries, voyages, inventions. They have seen us reach for the stars, perhaps smiling quietly, knowing we have yet to explore the deeper stars beneath the caverns of our own planet. To them, our entire history is not mystery, but memory. There is an unsettling thought to what if they are not only watching but guiding? What if the watchers from below nudge our paths in ways so subtle we never notice? A shift in thought here, a coincidence there, a leader rising at the right time. We may believe we are the authors of our story, but perhaps we are with invisible hands shaping the margins, writing softly in ink we cannot see. If they still watch, then perhaps they also wait for what we do not know. Perhaps for us to mature, to prove ourselves worthy of open contact. Or perhaps they wait for necessity the moment when the surface can no longer sustain life, and we, the surface children, must descend to join them. If that day comes, the watchers may no longer remain watchers. They may become guides, welcoming us into the hidden world they have always called home. And yet, even now, you might wonder, as you sit in your room, as you walk through a field, as you drift to sleep, could they be observing still? Not in ways you can sense, but in the subtle vibrations of the earth itself. It is not a gaze you feel, but a presence. Quiet, ancient, patient. They have seen civilizations older than ours fade into silence. They may see ours do the same, and through it all, they remain silent guardians, or silent witnesses, beneath. If they still watch from below, then perhaps we are never truly alone. Even in our solitude, even in our doubts, there may always be an unseen audience, watching with curiosity, watching with patience, watching with knowledge older than our species itself, and perhaps, on some level, we already know, because every time we peer into the darkness of a cave, every time we hear the echo of our own footsteps underground, every time we shiver at the thought of unseen eyes, something within us whispers the same truth. We are not the only ones who call this planet home. They are still here, and they are still watching. In the stillness of night, when the world above has grown quiet, the mind turns inward. Thoughts soften, and imagination stretches beyond the ordinary. It is in this space, between waking and dreaming, that we can reflect on the idea of a hidden civilization beneath our feet. It is more than speculation. It is more than myth. It is an invitation to wonder. Throughout our journey, we have walked gently through caverns of possibility. We have listened to old legends, traced strange ruins, and imagined cities lit not by the sun, but by the glow of unknown energies deep below. Now, at the end of this path, we pause not to conclude, but to reflect. For questions such as these are never answered with certainty. They are lived, like mysteries carried through generations. When you think of a hidden civilization, what comes to your mind? Do you see towering halls carved into crystal caverns? Do you picture beings of great age and wisdom, their eyes reflecting knowledge drawn from the very bones of the earth? Or do you imagine something subtler, communities living in silence, tucked away in chambers no surface dweller has ever entered, existing alongside us like shadows that never meet the light? Whatever the image, it is always hauntingly beautiful, because the thought itself that we may not be alone, that beneath the ground is a second world, is enough to transform the way we see our own. The earth is vast. Its crust stretches deeper than we can drill, deeper than we can imagine. Beneath the soil lies rock, and beneath that, layers of molten stone, shifting and alive. Between these layers, in pockets and hollows, in voids carved by ancient waters or ancient hands, who can say what truly resides? We know so little of the underworld. In truth, we have mapped the surface of Mars more completely than we have mapped the chambers beneath our own feet. It is humbling to admit, and it leaves a space for wonder, a space where civilizations might exist unseen, where watchers might linger, where an entirely different history might be unfolding in parallel with our own. Reflect for a moment on human memory. How much do we remember of our own past? Civilizations rise and vanish, leaving behind only fragment stones stacked into ruins, words pressed into clay tablets, stories whispered across campfires, and yet even these fragments fade. Imagine if a great empire had once chosen to live underground, how little of it might remain for us to find. If their walls were buried deep, if their light was drawn from sources unknown, If their artifacts were hidden in caverns, sealed to the surface, then to us, they would be invisible. It is possible that we walk above them every day. Reflection also reminds us that myths often carry more than fantasy. They are memory, softened and reshaped across centuries. The stories of underworlds, of beings beneath, of luminous kingdoms hidden in the earth, these appear again and again, across cultures separated by oceans and time. Why? Perhaps it is coincidence. Perhaps it is the human imagination, endlessly fascinated by what lies beneath. But perhaps it is also something deeper. A trace of memory, faint but persistent. A whisper from ancestors who glimpsed something long ago and could never forget. In this way, myth itself may be a form of watching. The watchers leave no monuments for us to see, but their presence lingers in our stories, and stories, carried forward, become the bridges between their world and ours. Now, let us reflect on the nature of watching. If there is a hidden civilization still present beneath us, then their greatest act is patience. To remain unseen is not easy. To endure while others live loudly above requires discipline, choice, perhaps even sacrifice. Why would they choose this? Perhaps because they learned, long ago, the dangers of living upon the surface. The surface is fragile. Storms, floods, extinctions, wars. To live above is to live in constant risk. To live below is to live in continuity. If so, then their hiddenness is wisdom. It is survival, and in that survival, they might look upon us with a mixture of wonder and sorrow. Wonder at our courage to live under the sun, exposed to every danger. Sorrow at our repeated mistakes, our conflicts, our fragile balance with the world we inherit. Watching, always watching, perhaps wishing we might learn. Reflection invites you to imagine a meeting. What would it feel like to stand face to face with such a hidden people? Would they appear human, shaped by the same evolutionary paths, or would they seem entirely otherwise, adapted to darkness? Minds shaped by silence, technology grown from minerals we have never touched. Would their voices be soft, their gestures slow, their thoughts layered with time? Or would we find them startlingly familiar, like distant cousins, lost to history, carrying knowledge we once shared before paths diverged? The image is dreamlike. It is not about proof or evidence, but about opening a window in the imagination. And through that window, we see ourselves differently. We see our fragility. We see our curiosity. We see the thin skin of the earth on which our entire civilization rests. And suddenly, the world feels larger. To reflect on a hidden civilization is also to reflect on our own. For what does it mean, truly, to build a society, to endure, to grow, to pass knowledge forward? If there are people beneath us who have done so for longer than we can imagine, then perhaps we are the young civilization. Perhaps we are still learning what they mastered long ago. And what if they still wait for us? What if, in their patience, they are not only watching, but preparing for the moment when we are ready to understand, when we are ready to meet, not just with curiosity, but with humility? Reflection, then, becomes not just about them, but about us. About whether we are ready to be the kind of civilization worth meeting. Think of time itself. The Earth is over 4 billion years old. Humanity, as we know it, only a brief chapter, thousands of years in a story that stretches endlessly back. How much can we truly claim to know about what has transpired in those eons? How many civilizations might have risen and fallen before us, whether on the surface or below? The watchers may not be alien at all. They may be older humans, or pre-humans, or beings who branched from our lineage before we even had the word civilization. They may be as native to earth as we are, and perhaps more enduring. Reflection asks us to hold this humility close, to recognize that the earth does not belong only to us. It has held many worlds, and perhaps it holds more still. As you imagine this, you may feel a strange comfort, because, in a way, the idea of a hidden civilization means we are not alone, that even in the darkest moments of our history, even in times when humanity felt abandoned, there was always someone else, quiet, unseen, but present. They may not have interfered openly, but their gaze itself is a kind of companionship. To be watched is to be known, and to be known, even invisibly, is to never be truly isolated. Perhaps this is why the thought lingers with such tenderness. It is not only a mystery, but a reassurance. And so, as this reflection draws to its end, let us return to the surface. The air is cool. The stars shine above. The ground beneath is solid, familiar, yet you carry with you the thought of what may rest within it. Not as fear, not as darkness, but as wonder. For the hidden civilization, if it exists, is not a threat. It is a reminder. A reminder that the world is deeper than we think, that history is broader than we remember, and that life, in all its forms, is more mysterious than we can explain. It reminds us to walk gently, to live with curiosity, to listen for whispers in silence, and to look with imagination where eyes cannot see. And above all, it reminds us that mystery is not a puzzle to be solved, but a companion to be cherished. Now, let your thoughts drift beneath. You, the ground stretches downward into shadows and silence. Perhaps there are caverns there, lit with soft light. Perhaps there are beings there, watching gently, patiently, kindly. Whether or not they are real, the idea itself is enough to soften the heart, to quiet the mind, to carry you toward rest. For mystery itself is a gift, and in the presence of mystery, the soul finds peace. So close your eyes, let the questions rest. Let the watchers, if they are there, keep their quiet vigil, and know that you are part of something vast, something ancient, something beautiful. Good night.